Hello, everybody. I've been wanting one of these for a while, and I finally picked one up around the start of the year. And I've shot about 200 shells through it so far, so I figured that'd be a good kind of first impressions video. I'd probably make a video every 1,000 rounds or so, but I figured this would be a good start just to kind of show what I got in the box and show that I didn't get a lemon or nothing. Get a little function out of it first before I make a video saying if I like it or not. So it is a Stevens 320 pump shotgun with the combo barrel. I got this at Sportsman, so it comes with the long and the short barrel. Then it came with your choke wrench and your hunting plug, which is nice. Now, one thing I will say about this choke wrench is I wish that it had also fit the spanner on the forend, because that would have been nice to just be able to take it off. I don't think it would have been that much work, and it would have been multi-purpose, but they didn't. So yeah, you have to find something else for that. So everybody says that this is a copy of like Winchester 1300, but if you look, it's actually exactly like a Winchester SXP more than it is like a 1300. I mean, it does have a rotating bolt, and I mean, it's similar all the way back to the 1200. I mean, it's all pretty similar rotating bolt with the same kind of style of trigger group. But yeah, no, this one is exactly like the SXP, especially the way that it retains the barrel nut with the little plastic follower. So I'll show you that in a minute. Since we can't take this apart on camera anymore, I'm going to disassemble this and I'll show you what it looks like. So here we got the shotgun taken apart, and first thing I want to do is compare the barrels. So one thing that I will say is I wish that the hunting barrel, the 28-inch one, I wish the rib sat flush with the receiver, because when you aim down, it's flat, and then the rib is kind of raised a slight little bit more. So it took a minute to get used to compared to like a Mossberg 500 and other stuff where it's perfectly flush. And you just look straight down the receiver and everything's in line. So that might take a minute to get adjusted to if you aren't adjusted to it already. But the short barrel, I actually like it more than the short barrels for most other shotguns, because instead of just screwing the bead right into the barrel, then if you've shot a shotgun with just the 18-inch barrel and no rib, that the bead will sit down past the receiver a little bit, and so then it won't be perfectly lined up. It'll either be a little bit below, but it just isn't lined up. But with this, you could see, because I think they have the model with the ghost ring sight, they have this base kind of on it to raise it up, which brings it level with the receiver. So I really like this 18.5-inch barrel, but I think they could have done a little bit better on the 28-inch barrel. 18.5-inch barrel is improved cylinder, or just cylinder bore, I think, as to where the 28-inch does take removable chokes as well. So that's always nice. And I don't think these are compatible with the Winchesters, because the magazine tube is a different diameter, but I might be wrong on that. I know for sure they're not compatible with the 13 or 1200, but maybe the SXP. So going on to the pump, you can see that they made this all one piece, as opposed to Winchester where it's two pieces and you have to have a little screw that goes through and is a really huge pain. And then we have the firing pin, and we got the spring, and we have the rotating bolt. And if you want to take this bolt out, I'm not going to do it right now, you just pull, there's a hole in here, and what you want to do is get a pin in there or something, or a punch, I mean, and just pull down on this right here, and then that'll come out, and then that'll let you take out your bolt, and there's a spring in there that holds in your extractor, and then that'll come right out. I really like that too, that it's a spring and there's no pin or any sort of thing holding in your extractor there. I'm not going to take that out right now though. Going on to the magazine tube and the follower, you can't remove it unless you could put the barrel nut on and give it a good whack, and then, because it's retained in by this feed throat right here, but then you'd have to have a tool to go around here and slide it, hammer it back into place with the receiver, because it locks into those little grooves and whatnot. It uses a high-vis polymer follower, which seems to be fine. Plastic followers aren't that big of a deal. I got an old Savage 67 that has a plastic follower. It's been just fine over the years. Then we have the spring. And what you'll see here is what I was talking about. While this is more like a SXP than a 1200 is, so with the 1200, there would be a little ball and detent on this barrel ring right here. And then this all around here would be serrated and it would lock into there. As to where this is kind of textured on the inside. And then this sits in the end of the magazine tube like this as the spring pushes against it, and that's what locks it in. I'm not too sure if it's good that these are plastic, but I mean, they're also plastic on the SXP, so it can't be that big of a deal, right? I just recommend maybe keeping it oiled and ordering a second one. It might be the best bet. So in the receiver, it's just it's an aluminum receiver, and we have an ejector just like all the way back to the Winchester 1200. On the Winchester 1200 though, it didn't have a screw right there to hold it in. I'm not sure if the Winchester XSP does, but the 1200, that thing will just flop around if you take it apart, and it's kind of a pain to get it back into position, right? And yeah, so we got this to ride. It's to make sure that your bolt stays on track and doesn't rotate. And then when you lock your barrel in, it's got a little shelf right there to rest on, and then these two shoulders to make sure it doesn't rotate. It's pretty nice. I've heard reports of the barrel coming loose. That hasn't happened to me while I was shooting it. I've heard reports of these welds breaking right here. That hasn't happened to me. I fired some 3-inch shells, shot about 200 shells through it by now. I will say the only issue that I've had, and why I wish that they did make the choke wrench able to able to adjust this spanner right here, is because after shooting it a while, it did come loose, but I just had tightened it with some Loctite and screwed it down a little bit more, and it was good. Because yeah, see, they could have made this to where it would have fit into there and screwed it in, but they didn't. Doesn't make sense, really. I mean, it could have served T purposes very easily, but it is what it is. Moving on to the trigger group, I'm pretty sure this is just like all the way to the Winchester 1200, because I messed around with one of those and it's pretty much the exact same. You got your primary and secondary shell stops. They're not removable. They are riveted into your trigger housing. Then you have the two metal plates on the side, which I like, because the pin and the receiver is going to go through this hole right here. So even though your trigger housing is polymer, so it can bend right here, not crack. I like that it's polymer here and metal here, so that the pin's holding it in metal, but you still got a little bit of flexibility and whatnot down here. You got your shell lift. I'm pretty sure when you pump back, it kind of pulls that back. Then when you pump it forward to a certain point, it'll lift it up into position, because you could tell it pushes on it right here a little bit. And I think when it comes all the way forward, it'll push it back up and down. See, goes like that, and then like that. Yeah, you got a simple crossbolt safety. I mean, this doesn't give you a lot of problems, really. I guess it's pretty robust. It's got a really skidding hammer. One interesting thing on this that I think is you have to have a lot of positive engagement on this sear right here that holds the hammer. Here, let me see if I can get it to focus, because it'll actually move with the slide release. See that? That little silver piece in the back of the hammer moving up and down. So if it's not positive enough, it could have a greater risk of slipping off than a regular shotgun. Yeah, you can see the machinery is a little bit rough, but it's not too bad. I'm gonna go try to shoot a little bit of trap on Thursday, so that might be the next video with the shotgun. Shoot 100 rounds through it on camera, but This is the first 200 rounds through it, and yeah, seems alright.